Okay, we've got another word in context. Some scientists have suggested that mammals in the Mesozoic era were not a very blank group. Mammals were not a very dense group, numerous group, maybe. But paleontologists, so-and-so, research suggests that early mammals living in the shadow of dinosaurs weren't all ground-dwelling insectivores. So insectivores. So if you're an insectivore, we're not a very carnivorous group, maybe, if you're eating insects. Or herbivorous? I don't know. Let's see. Fossils of various plant-eating mammals have been found in China. So plant-eating, that's an exception. So they were not very herbivorous, the opposite of carnivorous. So various plant-eating animals have been found in China, including species like such and such, with Luo says could glide like a flying squirrel. So it looks like the setup is here. In this era, mammals weren't very herbivorous. They didn't eat much in the way of plants. Living in the shadow of dinosaurs, they weren't all ground-dwelling insectivores, which means they eat insects. They weren't all insect eaters. Okay? Which I guess would be the alternative to being an herbivore. The carnivore, you'd be eating insects. Why not other dinosaurs? I guess the mammals didn't eat the dinosaurs because they're smaller in the shadow of the dinosaurs. Okay, so I kind of that makes sense to me now. So the idea should be something like plant eating or herbivorous. So they weren't all plant eating. Okay, yet they did find some fossils of plant eating mammals in China. We're not a very predatory group. Well, that might be right. If they're not carnivorous, they would be plant eating. No, maybe. Let's keep going. We're not a very obscure group. Obscure means not clear, shaded. No, I don't think that's the right idea. Diverse. Mammals in the Mesozoic area were not a very diverse group. That's possible. They weren't diverse, but this suggests that early mammals in the shadow weren't all ground-developing insectivores. So if they were not diverse, they would all be the same. And contrasting that, this research suggests that they were different, not all ground-dwelling insectivores. This could well be it, right? Localized. We're not a very localized group, right? The mammals were not a very localized group, meaning what? They were spread apart? I don't think that's the right idea. Mammals in shadow of dinosaurs weren't all ground-dwelling insectivores. Fossils of various plant-eating animals have been found in China, including species which could glide like a flying squirrel. So they could glide. They weren't on the ground. We have the idea of them on the ground versus flying in the air. Okay, actually, in retrospect, when I look at it, it's not a question of localized. It's diverse. They were not a very diverse group, but the examples show that you have ground dwellers and gliding like mammals. This shows diversity. It's not a question of locality. That was similar, but not the right idea. Diversity is the real idea here. That's the right word in context. Not localized, diverse. So C is the correct answer for 21. Okay, another word in context. Investigating whether shared false visual memories. So shared false memories. Okay, maybe you witness a crime and everybody got it wrong. Something like that, I guess. Specific but inaccurate and widely held recollections of images such as product logos are caused by people's previous blank incorrect renditions of the images. Previous something incorrect renditions of the images. Researchers such and such found that, in fact, such memories are often explained by familiarity with erroneous versions of the images. So they're caused by people's previous familiar incorrect renditions. Incorrect is erroneous. What would put in the blank here? Are caused by people's previous experienced incorrect renditions or familiarity with. I think it's something to do with familiarity with. I don't really have a good guess here. Okay, so in this case, let's kind of plug back in. So are caused by people's previous compliance with incorrect renditions of the images. Compliance means you follow the rules. That's not right. Exposure to are caused by people's previous exposure to incorrect renditions of the images. That would make sense. That seems to be an appropriate word. Okay. Criteria for, no, it's not about a criteria, whether it's accepted or not. Forfeiture, they give up incorrect renditions. No, they're exposed to incorrect images in the past. B will be the correct answer. According to a U.S. tax policy expert, state taxes are blank other factors when considering an interstate move. They are blank other factors. Okay, not clear what would go in there. Even significant differences in state taxation have almost no effect on most people's decisions. Okay, so state taxes are less important than? If, state taxation is having no effect on people's decisions, while differences in employment, opportunities, housing availability, and climate are strong. So all these other things are strong influences relative to an interstate move, but the taxes are less important than those things. I think that's the right idea. So consistent with, no, that's not correct. Representative of, no, they don't represent the other factors. Overshadowed by, that looks to be right. They're overshadowed by, they're, in other words, less important than the other factors. Irrelevant to other factors, well, yeah, they're irrelevant to, but they're overshadowed by the other factors. That's the correct idea in context. C is the answer. Okay, another word in context problem. The author's claim about the relationship between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens is blank. His claim about the relationship is, well, it fails, so it may be wrong. To account for several recent archaeological discoveries. Okay, maybe wrong or not up to date. To be more specific, if it doesn't include recent discoveries. To be convincing, his argument would need to address recent finds of additional hominid fossils, such as the latest Denisovan species and Homo longi. So their claim about the relationship between these two is wrong, not up to date. It somehow falls short. Falls short is missing critical information. Let's try and find that idea. Disorienting? No, that means it's confused. Tenuous? Tenuous means you hold on to something. So, tenuous, sometimes you can say tenuous at best, meaning it's not really that good. So tenuous is tenuous. Possible. Tenuous could mean not up to date, on shaky ground, perhaps. Nuanced is nuanced as it fails. No, nuanced doesn't suggest failure. It suggests particular details. Unoriginal. Well, no, not unoriginal. I think it's tenuous. Tenuous. The relationship between it is on shaky ground. It's kind of wrong. It fails to account for certain things. 24, the answer here is B, tenuous. Another word in context. Within baleen whale species, some individuals develop an accessory spleen, a seemingly functionless formation of splenetic tissue outside the normal spleen. Okay, so they have a spleen outside the spleen. Okay, so here's the spleen. Apparently they have another kind of spleen outside that, and it's not functional. Doesn't really do anything, but it's there. Okay. Given the formation's greater prevalence among whales known to make deeper dives, some researchers hypothesized that its role isn't unimportant, right? Isn't, let's just use unimportant, but, not dead, for lack of a better word. It actually has a function, right? Rather, the accessory spleen may actively support diving mechanism, may help make deeper dives. Okay, so a role that isn't, and then I need an opposite to ultimately say a double negative is important. So that its role isn't replicable, that means to replace it. No, I don't need to replicate it or replace it. Predetermined, its role isn't predetermined. No, that's not the idea. The idea here is that it's maybe functional. The role isn't operative. No. Isn't latent. Latent means, if you might not know, the others are wrong, so hopefully you still come to that. Latent means hidden, not a trait that hasn't come out yet, right? So that's the idea. Its role isn't latent. It isn't hidden. It isn't, not functional. It actually does something. D is the correct answer.